Okay. So after a phone call yesterday about the you know uh I did a lot of thinking, and it sort of left me wondering a number of things. I think the first thing I was wondering is, um of the things that I've asked over the last like 4 months, have I been clear? Have I not been clear? And if I haven't been clear, what approach can I take to be more clear about what my desires are? Right. But
Are you talking about the riddles thing?
yes.
Look, it's usually when you go on a long tangent about like the DOJ or some shit,
Yeah.
and then you start talking about multiple different topics at once.
Mm,
That's what I'm talking about.
I got you.
Your directions with me, I think, have been clear. When you need something from
Oh
me or
my
you need to see a
fucking god!
change.
God damn it! I've been losing my fucking mind for like 12 hours now.
No, it's when you start going on, like you start talking about multiple different topics at once. That's what I'm talking about when you start talking in riddles.
Oh no, that's just me ranting.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm talking about. Your rants, and that's what I'm referring to when I say like yeah.
Oh, well,
You're
when
just
I
getting lost in the sauce with subject changes.
You don't notice how I just start agreeing with you when you start going on your
yeah,
rants, because
but
half the
that's
time
what
I
you're
can't
supposed to
follow
do. It's just a
along.
rant,
I
Daisy.
know, and that's what I'm saying. Is
I
just
don't want anything out of it.
your
I'm just
rant
complaining and bitching because
riddles.
there's no one to
I
complain
just
to.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
I don't
okay.
even have Pred anymore.
Oh,
See, multiple
Nino.
topics. Okay, do you want to go on a rant?
Daisy, I was so worried. I thought you were quitting.
No, I mean we just had a conversation a few days ago about you said, you know, that I'm toughing through it and all of that, and if I was gonna quit, wouldn't I have already done it a while ago?
No, maybe. All right. So,
I mean, it's you know, I feel bad for you, like, given the whole thing about the justices going on LOA. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, how do we even kind of move forward right now?
yeah. Okay. All right. The way that I took the conversation yesterday was, I think when I asked, like, most of the conversations confusing, that led me to then be like, okay, well, then have I ever given clear directions? And is that possibly, you know, maybe you can help summarize what we discussed earlier today. Um,
So I think honestly, I think both of you are just like doubting yourselves a little too much. Um, Nino is concerned that he's not giving you clear instructions, and that things aren't getting accomplished because of that. And I think you're feeling like Nino just doesn't really have faith in your abilities to do your job. I mean, would both of you say those are correct assessments?
I also would say that I may be giving you challenges that are unachievable due to things that are outside of your control, and that might be giving you more stress than is fair to give you.
Um,
So,
yeah, I don't entirely agree with that. Um, I don't think that there's anything that you've really put on me that I have agreed to, knowing that I can't see it through, you know?
okay.
Uh I think if you've approached me about something and it's not something that makes sense, I have tried to figure out a different solution or a different way that we can go about it. No,
God
I don't
damn it! I
think
was hoping
you've
for
necessarily
conflict.
put anything unachievable on me. I think that there are just certain things like it's just that look the the PD LSPD. I think I came into this unknowingly with at least one hand tied behind my back. Um, it it's difficult when you have a lot of people that immediately were against me in this position, and then obviously selecting Peters as my assistant chief. I didn't expect there to be such a drastic reaction to that as on top of it. Um, initially with all of the transfers and everything, I still stand by that. I don't think that those transfers were a bad thing. I think if those people were going to ultimately be happier in BCSO, instead of just kind of continuously airing out their frustrations to LSPD and like bringing other people down in LSPD, I think it was a positive change. But it's there's been kind of constant pushback on sort of anything that we do. Even like positive changes, somebody wants to complain about them, right? And I think that
Conflict
that has
watchers in
been kind
shambles.
of the
God damn it!
biggest struggle that
Why
we've
can't Daisy be bad
faced
with Nino?
is
Oh, Chief, are you busy?
yes.
Oh, sorry about that, ma'am.
God damn it.
Is how do I say this? You know how they say like don't have yes men or whatever, that you need to have
Yeah.
people that are going to push back.
Mm.
I think that there's a difference between that and having you can have people that disagree with you, but ultimately you have the same goal at the end, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And you work together to get to that goal. But I think the big struggle that Peters and I have had in the PD is that there are a lot of people that work for us or work directly under us in command that do not agree with our ultimate goal and ultimately make it extremely difficult for us to get there. But they also, it's a hard thing, right? Because I think that there are people within the PD that work really hard and that show up every day. And even if from a political side, they're giving us a hard time, at the end of the day, I still feel like they do their job. And so it's definitely kind of a balancing act of I don't want to demote people or, fire people just because they don't agree with me. But I have to find that line of, is it just not agreeing with me, or is it actively trying to stop us from achieving the things that we want to achieve? I think that's one of the biggest struggles that we've faced.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance.
I think Nino and I have been on the same page with end goals for the PD and seeing seeing LSPD do well, but sometimes it feels like I am trying to force people to do a good job or to resolve issues, but ultimately they don't want these issues resolved.
Yeah.
Is it like you feel like you have to force people to do their jobs when they should want to do their jobs sort of situation?
Sometimes, or just like internal issues with the PD, it's become very clear that some of those issues people don't want resolved. They just want to
Yeah.
sort of be in the drama, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I will be honest, I was hoping that you would crash out during this meeting, and I'm a little disappointed because that was my plan for the next day or two is Nino and Daisy conflict because I don't have anyone else to have conflict with. But
That's
I will
gross.
say that but I'm not going to force the conflict either. No, jokes aside, I don't. You're not wrong, right? We face very similar challenges on our end, right? With different members of the DOJ, people in the public, right? They have an issue. You might try your best to find a route that is beneficial to both parties. Sometimes I feel like I'm giving way more than the other party is. And then you're like, oh shit, okay, this is going to resolve it. But then all of a sudden there's a
No,
new
I
problem.
mean,
And it's like, what the fuck? And
you look at like the issues between LSPD and BCSO, right? Whenever I talk to Bones, like one on one, it feels like we're on the same page. It feels like things are going
mm,
well, and then, you know, it's not so much anymore. I will say, like the transfers and stuff like that. I don't know. I know that sometimes Bones like plants the idea in people's head to transfer. Sometimes they just go to him. I don't know. I guess I can't really fault him too much because I know Peters tries to poach people from
no.
BCSO as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in fairness, one of those departments is overstaffed and one of them isn't. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's one of those things, right, where, I've heard from Nino that he's frustrated with BCSO in the city again, overstepping.
It's the
I won't,
overstepping specifically
yeah.
and
And I get frustrated
yeah.
about that too. But I
like the
think
Ventura
that,
SK situation.
yeah,
Yes.
but I think it goes back to there's this very fine line where you know, I could pull a card. I could bring back the jurisdictional stuff. I could make it, very very LSPD heavy. But I have to weigh like a lot of different factors in that of I know that that time period, that 3 weeks or whatever, it also weighed heavy on LSPD officers. I think they did their best. I think a lot of them worked really hard through that. But, not being able to get backup, BCSO not patrolling in the city a was a big burden on them. And that kind of resentment from both sides still lingers today of the frustration of one not getting backup and also BCSO kind of holding it against LSPD. And like the question is, do I put people through that again? You know? But like, because I can tell you right now, I've tried to talk to Bones, when things have come up in the past, tried to talk to Cassidy, and I just kind of get nowhere with it. And so I'm kind of at the point of like, when situations happen, is it even worth the conversation?
So I guess and this is a complex solution that's not going to have like or a complex issue that's not going to have like an immediate like one single solution, right? But being worried about your officers having to take on more than like you have the staff to equip, right? You know, worried about them going to calls and not having sufficient backup if you pull that jurisdiction card.
Mm.
That's super valid. But like, can we start thinking of solutions for, you know, that problem that don't involve BCSO being the backup? Like, can we have a big hiring push or something like
So,
that, right?
and that's part of it, is that I think we have had a hiring push in the last month. We've hired a good amount of cadets that are currently being trained, and people are trying to put them up to PPO. But I think the bigger problem that we have right now, putting aside the BCSO issues and the marshal issues, is the fact that we're struggling with FTOs right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've had meetings with high command members, and I think we've come up with some solutions. We implemented that thing that you said, Nino, about the cars and trying to give incentives for people to FTO. What we ended up doing is buying 3 premieres, and I don't know if they've been upgraded, or they're in the process of being upgraded. I've tasked Sky with dealing with that, but the incentive is going to be if you FTO for 16 hours or more per month, you can drive a Premier, which has been a Senior Plus only vehicle. So hopefully that will
The
get some
problem is
people
though,
interested,
like,
people that want to drive,
it's
you
the
know, better
pool.
cars. The FTO thing is, I think, our biggest hurdle right now, because if we could
Mm-hmm.
just get those cadets pushed up to PPO, I think it would take a lot of weight off of people.
Yeah. And then in
But
turn, you can eventually train them to be FDOs, hopefully, like, you know, some of them. So,
people just, I don't know why people just don't want to FTO. It all gets
I
kind of pushed on a few people, and then
yeah.
ultimately they get burnt out, and then they don't want to FTO. It's kind of a vicious cycle.
I uh something I left the cabinet meeting on was I think the reality is that the majority are unconcerned. And what I mean by that is and tell me if you disagree, you know, why are the stalls closed even though people can't eat? Stall people are unconcerned. Why are there vacant? Why is the justices gone? They're unconcerned. Why are officers chasing adrenaline instead of operating on what is right and wrong? Unconcerned. Why are criminals willing to drive 10 vehicles, slam it into people, and then start crying when they're shot? Because they're unconcerned, right? I think we've hit a stage. And the reason I highlight this is it's part of the equation for solving whatever challenges we have. Is I think a lot of people just want to eat now instead of cook, you know? And so even, and I'm speculating here, even when it comes to the folks that might want to get hired by the police department, their first thought is probably the excitement, less so civil rights, making sure it goes to court, et cetera, in the same light that there's not really any organizations out there in the criminal world that are even remotely interesting. People wear their flags, they're willing to hold their guns out. You see what I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And so in the same light, why FTO? What do I get out of it? I get to train someone. That's more work. I'd rather go chase some criminals down than shoot them, right? Why be, you know, do some more interesting crime? Because I could go rob this ship and shoot up cops. Not saying that it's like wrong to do so. It's just
I think it Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, go ahead, Maeve.
I think this sort of tracks back to the conversation you and I had the other day, Nino, of like it's harder to do the good thing, quote good thing that forces you to think about other people, and it's easier to do the quote bad thing that allows you to be kind of inherently selfish and worrying about your own needs and wants first. And I think a lot of it too is at this point, various systems in the city have been broken to some degree for so long that people are burned out trying to be the change they want to see in the world and are just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to do me at this point because the system is against me. I think a lot of it is just burnout, and that's in various capacities for people on all sides of the law and from all walks of life, right? They've tried to do what they need to do to get a stall, and then suddenly, by the point they get that stall and it's up and running, and then there's additional challenges they're facing, they're just over it. Or
Yeah.
by the time, because like, I mean, I had an application into the PD for 4 months. I was a dispatcher. Like it was, like by the time people are getting hired, then waiting in cadet queues that are, not necessarily anybody's fault, but slow or non-existent sometimes, right? Because there just isn't FTOs to take them. And then by the time you get to PPO and then you get to officer, it's like by the time you get there, it's like, well, are you burned out yet? Are you wanting to teach people? Do you still have the same spark and passion that you did when you started?
Yeah.
Same reason, you and I, when we're over there in our meetings, are getting frustrated at, whatever we're dealing with for the day because,
True.
like, we're tired. We've been working to fix it. And some
Yeah.
people have better tolerances for that than others.
True. Yeah, I agree.
And some people are going to continue to, say, well, I am going to be the change I want to see in the world, and I'm going to keep working on this even though I'm fucking tired. And that's not necessarily a good thing either, right? It's good for everyone else, but it's not necessarily good for them. I think everyone in the city is just kind of fucking over it. To a degree.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing we're trying to trek forward. Well, I'm glad we had this conversation. I think that clears things. Like I said, I was sort of concerned on a spectrum of where you were with things. I think you're facing very similar challenges to we are, and the reality is that, as much as it'd be nice for there to be a lot of solutions and whatnot, there's a lot to deal with.
I mean, I think as far as like what Peters and I are looking at is just trying, in the conversations that I've had with High Command, is trying to figure out support for command, because they're overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
They're overloaded. And whether that's more senior officers to sort of funnel like issues and complaints. So I, hired, or no, I promoted a few people in shift 2, and we're trying to figure out people in shift 1, and shift 3 I think is fine from the conversations that I've had. And FTOing. So those are kind of the immediate things that need to be addressed, as well as the retraining. But yeah, I think what it comes down is people are just kind of checked out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I agree.
And you can't really force them to check back in.
I do think more seniors and more delegation overall within the department is probably something that would help a lot with the issues you guys are facing. It's certainly not going to solve everything, but I think it'll at least help. But of course, the issue is also getting the people who are qualified and good fits for that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of enforcing chain of command, because I think people are kind of loose with it right now. I think would be helpful too. I know a lot of things get put on Maxwell, and it's a struggle. And just people can't take it personally if chain of command is enforced. Like I just said to Alana earlier, I said you need to follow chain of command. Stop going directly to Maxwell. You are a cadet. go to an officer.
Yeah.
And then she went on this whole sad arc, and I'm just like,
Oh, is that why she? Oh,
I don't know if that,
okay.
but she started doing it right after I spoke to
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I think too, especially because I guess shift one is the shift that I am around the most during, so I see mostly that. But like I think in shift one in particular, um officers, because there like aren't really any like super active seniors and stuff, like, and with Dan on LOA right now too, it's like, well, okay, if we have an issue, or basically our next option is Maxwell, and Maxwell has a bajillion things on her plate and people don't want to bother her. And so it's like, I think having that step in between of that chain of command, especially in shift one, is going to be really helpful for you guys.
yeah, the shift one command structure is a little bit difficult because I'm not sure where Viv has been lately. I haven't really seen her, but also I'm not around during shift one, so she might be around. But Viv is a sergeant, King is a sergeant, Den is a sergeant, but he's on LOA. But we actually have I'm trying to limit it to only 3 command members per shift, and so we
Mhm.
actually have an extra one in shift 1, so it's not the end of the world that Den is on LOA right now. But it just kind of depends on how active. I know King is pretty active.
I think I've seen
And
King twice in like the 2 weeks I've been actively covering the
he is
briefings, but
usually shift 3 into shift 1. So
that's true.
he's
He is a bit
earlier.
earlier. Yeah.
But I think he's pretty consistent. Charlie's a senior. We need more seniors in shift 1, but I think that there's just a question of who those seniors are
Hmm.
going to be. Shift 2 is actually pretty good. Not too concerned about shift 2. I might try to promote another person because we had a sergeant step down just because she has out of city stuff going on, so
Yeah.
she just doesn't have time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of trying to work through that. I think that's kind of the biggest issue we have right now. I don't know. I just worry about Maxwell more than anything because she has so much on her plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I look, I'm going to be rather frank here. I think a lot of people a lot of the challenges that I witnessed sitting in the bleach from the bleachers is a lot. I think a lot of people who weren't going to do the job anyways kicked their feet and then fucked off for an excuse for extended vacation or whatever the fuck you want to call it up north. I think that over time you're probably going to find people that are going to apply to the department and help pick up that weight. But that's like with any other job, right? It's going to be a while before the right people come through. And luckily, you have people like Maxwell that is willing to take on the burden.
Yeah.
But
Um. Okay, I've been hesitant to talk to you about this because I know at least your past feelings about Ruby York, but
yeah,
I wanted to talk. I don't want you to crash out,
I'm not going to
but
crash out.
I I have gone sort of back and forth. Ruby's currently a senior officer.
Mm,
She is probably our most active FTO in shift 2. I would say she's frankly one of the most active people in shift 2, most consistent people. She
mm,
comes on duty every day, and one of the main reasons why I haven't promoted Ruby to a sergeant is because I've been hesitant about her attitude. Obviously, she can be a little bit passive aggressive. Um she has made comments in the past. I do think it's genuinely gotten better. Um
mm.
she has her moments, but like anybody has their moments. Um but putting that aside, she is very much a staple in shift 2, and I think that she makes sense for the role of sergeant, but I would like to get your feedback on that.
I'm going to try to give you, I don't want to give you a direct answer. And the reason is ultimately, I trust you to make what you believe is the best choice. And if you don't make that choice, that's not fair to you. You know what I mean? But also, so
But I know
here's,
you had reservations about her in the past. I guess what I want to know, are those reservations still there?
um, uh, yes.
I don't know that I should speak on this.
I,
I
and
want to hear
I,
what you guys, because I don't see
yeah,
everything,
I
right?
will, of course. I have limited perspective, so take this. Ruby is the reason I ran for mayor due to
I know that.
what I perceive to be her inability to have compassion for non-officers. And she had a very well documented mother hen sort of characteristic about her commanding. In other words, individuals that had umbrage with those under her, she would protect, regardless of how egregious their decisions were, to the extent of, in the case of Tilly, was willing to say, we don't need to give you any FOIAs, instead of finding a way to compromise. And so I found her to be uncompromising to maintain the absolute power of the police department in her eyes. Now, has that changed? I haven't seen any evidence of it, right? So, this is expanded by the fact that while I do believe she has some understanding of law, she's also the one that I consistently witness do things that I see, unfortunately, embellished on a lot of officers that currently exist, which is going to court and standing on what is wrong. I'm going to give you an example. I have personally witnessed her going to court charging someone for simply being GSR negative, and then being instructed by the judge why simply being GSR negative, she cannot conclude that they had an illegal firearm, they were involved in a shooting, etc., etc. And then I witnessed her crash out on said judge instead of understanding that, hey, I need probable cause. So with that in mind, high command absolutely didn't make any sense. Even when it comes to an FTO perspective, and I say this once again, I have limited experience, I don't know what's changed over the last 3 months, is that even though she's FTOing, signing someone out, is she even teaching them properly, right? Does she understand today that even if she believes in her heart of hearts someone did something, that as an officer, you're not doing it based on how you feel, but whether you can establish probable cause? And understand that even if you have probable cause, if to get guilty means going through God knows how much time in court, that there's more bigger problems at play, and sometimes you got to weigh those things. The second, so that would be my big thing, right? Does she understand those principles, and is she teaching officers to arrest or teaching officers to serve and protect? That's what I think you should evaluate your decision on. There's the second thing that is concerning to me is her closeness to Frost. I
They're
don't
married,
see
aren't
him
they?
enough. Oh, they might be.
I'm pretty sure they're married.
But I do know that Frost is one of the officers whose name come up very often along with Sky Faye as folks that dig into other shifts, be it when it comes to what I perceive as witch hunting their own without any facts and evidence, just based on shit that they're just seeing, or hearing about, God knows how, but also witch hunting criminals. And so that mentality, I think, is destructive to a healthy police department. And so the most recent conversation with Frost being the stuff about Forte being in a gang.
I know.
What?
And
I said that all of that needed to be shut down.
Yeah.
I was frustrated about that.
And so I went on to tell him, I need you to look into cops, their relationships, and whether cops that are married to criminals, whether if, you know, they get shot next to their significant other, are they getting gang-related shooting? Right? I forgot what I told him to do. I made some bullshit up, but he took it very seriously. Now, the reason I did that, mind you, wasn't necessarily to stir. It's a little bit of a stir, right? But it was more to make a point. Is how are people being like someone like Forte being dug into? Like, because you have to. It's not about what
Literally
they
have an
did,
investigation into his blooding out. Like,
but it's not why. How, it's not that he looked into Forte. I'm more concerned at a higher level in his thought process is why he thought that was even all right. And why you would go after someone like Forte, right, who has, as far as I'm aware, no sign of being involved in anything, just as much as that one officer that used to be in the Ballers, right? They talk about their past, but like, where's the evidence that they've done anything inappropriate? While underneath his very nose, there's a wedding with automatic firearms where multiple officers witness to those automatic firearms being available, where a cop is marrying a criminal, where they're on ride-alongs together. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of the
double standard.
The extreme double standard. Yeah, it's like someone's committing terrorism over here, but you're worried about if someone got away with a traffic citation. It's hard for me to, like, I don't know.
I hear what you're saying.
On the topic of Ruby, I will say my interactions with her are pretty limited. But I would definitely agree with your assessment that she is passive aggressive. I think she has been in every single interaction I've had with her. And I wouldn't say
It's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, she's passive aggressive. I could also see the statement about lack of empathy for anyone without a badge, because in the immediate aftermath of my employment with dispatch being terminated, because I applied for PD at the urging of High Command and Max, you know, who was commissioner at the time, because of the PD issues.
I thinking
Yeah.
about it, I remember your name when we were I just want you to know that that wasn't personal or anything against you. It was just
No. I didn't take it personally. It's totally fine. But
it was just like I will be honest with dispatch. It took me all of I think one day to look at the state of the dispatch department and be
it was
like,
horrendous.
oh my god, what is like they were
So,
left to their own devices, and it just seemed like an incredibly toxic situation that needed to be just completely redone.
Yeah, so brief insight. I got hired to dispatch. I was around every day at the 2 p.m. briefing, right? Every single day. I got in like a month and a half, I got I think 4 training sessions, apparently 3 of which weren't written down. So they didn't count. And I was showing up every day, putting my availability in the scheduler, doing everything that was asked of me, right? Doing a lot of studying on my own, was told I was doing really well. And then like Nadia would try and gaslight me and literally told me I wasn't doing enough, and that's why I wasn't getting taken out and getting training. So it was like, it was a really weird environment. And I went to Viv eventually, and I was like, Viv, like, I know you're PD and not dispatch, but like, I don't know what to do, because like, I'm not getting training. It's a really weird environment. Like, I've you know, I'm here every day and nothing's happening. And she worked with Cassidy on it, and I think maybe a couple other people, and I got 1 extra training session as a result of that. But like, I was like, I didn't want to use dispatch as a stepping stone for PD, but I want my time to be useful, you know? Like I want to do something and like actually accomplish something with my days. And so everyone's like, apply for PD. Other dispatchers have applications in, like, it's okay, like you won't lose your job. And I was like, okay. So I applied for PD and then I got fired for applying for PD because I was a trainee. Which like I get, you know, not wanting to bend the standards for everyone else. I'm really not upset about it, but like I went to Ruby afterwards because my keys weren't taken away when I was let go, and I needed someone to do that for me. So I went to her because she was still ass chief, and you know, like we were briefly talking about the situation, and Malachi had questions about it because it was kind of handled really confusingly, and she was just very like, "Well, you shouldn't have applied for PD if you were dispatch. We don't approve of people wanting to switch departments," and was very just like weird about it. And I've kind of seen that behavior with her in every minute and granted not many interactions I've had with her. Um Even like the other day, I was on no, I was speaking with Forte outside and he and McNulty and Den and one other officer, I don't remember who, had just done a raid in the sewers on some moonshine stuff.
Mm.
And he was telling Ruby the story about it. And he was really proud. He's like, we got all these stills. You know, he's telling his superior that like he did a good job, and that other people, you know, were doing good jobs, and you know, keeping her updated on events. And she, I guess, latched on to the fact that they had class twos with them, and was like, you could tell that she had an issue with it, but she wasn't directly going to say so. She was just kind of like casting shade on McNulty or whatever for like letting it happen. And it was like,
I
if you have an issue with your subordinates, you know, bringing class twos somewhere, like I
yeah
feel like as you know a superior officer, you should just be saying that instead of being like, oh, you had class twos, why was that? Bit of a weird choice. That like
yeah
it was just a very strange, like tense conversation.
I I will say my summary, and I've been really thinking about what Maeve's been saying, and took a step back in my mind and said, what do I truly think? I think that her FTOing people is irrelevant. I look at what she has produced, and she was a part of producing one of the worst iterations of LSPD. And that if she is FTOing people, I would be concerned if she's even training them properly. And the biggest evidence of what she produced is that dispatch team that you fired. They, she, I, everything that Maeve you just mentioned also speaks to the dispatch she was in control of.
It was a
And
wild time in
it's
dispatch.
it's
It
yeah.
was
My alternative here, and
I think
mm,
I just want to say, you know, I think it's difficult because I
don't have choices.
I really always want to try to give people the benefit of the doubt, you
Yeah.
know, and like people make choices, people make mistakes, and I really don't want to hold those mistakes against them. But when it's just a continued thing, and you know, I think maybe things are getting better or things have changed or shifted, and then you know, I will say I've seen it from my own eyes that you know things seem like they're on the right track, and then there's setbacks, and it's just I don't know. I keep trying to think maybe there's a way, and then
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was really hard for me as just like a bystander to see like Forte be like really excited to tell his superior about this big bus that they had and how they had this big planned operation and it went really well and blah blah, and to kind of have it be like implied that he did something wrong and shouldn't be proed, and then just like casually walk away. And then like that's just demoralizing, right? That you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
did this good thing, and they're like, oh, but did you? And then you're kind of just
Oh,
left
God.
wondering as they
Yeah.
left, you know, like
That's
because you have officers like Forte who, you know, are really passionate about wanting to step up and take on more responsibility and help with FTOing and help take things off of their superiors' plates. And then to have like a superior be like, yeah, I don't know, and just
I mean, that is literally what I tell when I promote somebody to senior or command. That is literally the first thing that I say to them. You are the cheerleaders of the PD.
yeah. And I'm
You
not saying she can't be like, you did something wrong if he did something wrong, right? Like correct bad behavior if there's an issue, but like it just wasn't even direct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if her issue was how, McNulty or Dan or whoever as like the senior officers of the operation handled it, like then take it up with them before like
Yeah.
implying to
Burst in
Forte
someone's
that
bubble. Yeah.
yeah.
Is he ever going
Because
to
he was
even
like,
do that again
Because
in the
that
future?
is
Yeah,
also
exactly.
that's not Forte's fault. If he was told to have
he
a
was just
class
following
2,
orders. Yeah.
it that's an issue with McNulty that she should address directly with him, or
I
frankly, come to me and I will
Mhm.
address it with him.
Yeah, exactly.
is it fair, and I don't, once again, this is from the bleachers looking in. LSPD has a lot of fantastic characters, including that guy that tried to grab my dick. I'm not too pressed about it at the end of the day. You got your Carmine, you got your Peach, etc., etc. But it's lacking a lot of needed leaders and needed folks that are going to pick up the mantle. And it kind.
I would actually, I would say I've purposefully put people like in senior and command roles that maybe don't have as much experience, but I see them moving into that role.
I believe you, right? But surely from like a percentage base, right? And I don't want to make it sound like any kind of way. You got folks like Forte, you got the Voldemort guy, who I genuinely think is
Vonnie is fantastic.
I genuinely think that is like, if you need an FT, I feel like that guy is waiting to be unleashed if he's not already.
I will say I shadowed a ride along that Bobby was conducting the other day, and the corporal punishment issues aside, he was surprisingly a wonderful fucking teacher. He really sat down and taught Frodo's stuff.
Bobby is given a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But Bobby is great. Bobby is extremely studious, and he's a good cop. He
true.
I think one thing that I've said to other command members,
except kind
and
of, hold
especially
on.
when he was
Hold up.
PPO, I said that he couldn't ride with whatever his name is, Carmine, because I know he gets caught up in
They feed into each
shenanigans. But Bobby tries really, really hard and does a good job.
Yeah, he sat Frodo down in the briefing room and like went over RS and PC and some case laws and stuff with him before taking him out. And then like they were doing traffic stops, and he was really being thorough about like all the steps of a traffic stop and what you have to do for your reports for it, and giving him a lot of practical advice. Like he did a really, really good job. He also tased Frodo, but other than that, like,
but that's the kind of thing that like I don't want to take away Bobby's charm and character and those aspects of him and try to make him into some super cop, because I think Bobby is great. I would rather have Bobby with his imperfections, but continue to do the job that he's doing now than take that away from him.
I will say those officers that are like that, because I can speak to like Forte, because obviously like he's my partner, so we talk about shit like this sometimes. But those officers that are like that really appreciate that from you, because I know in the previous chief and iterations of this PD, Forte has felt like he has had to change entirely who he is if he wants to even have a chance of keeping his job, and it's really been disheartening for him. So the fact that Peters was willing to take a second chance on him, and that you're encouraging that kind of mindset, means a lot to those officers, that
like
they're able to be themselves.
People, and I've told Peter, is as long as you don't like do something so far that I have to fire you, like do you I want people to have fun. I want people to be themselves, and police their own way, obviously with the restrictions of our SOPs. But I don't know, that's what I think Peters and I have tried to do, is we've tried to enable the Peaches and the Jebs and the Fortes, and to be able to to do things that the way that they want. And I know we get shit for it, because things happen when you allow that. But I would every day of the week rather allow people to make mistakes, than everybody be perfect all the time. Kind of what's the point?
Um, I is it so? I don't want to. So we talked about, like, there's a lot of up and comers and whatnot. Do you feel that there may be not? So there's not enough FTOs, right? I wonder, would it be I don't know how your hiring process is, right? But I want to float an idea.
Mhm.
I strongly, 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 strongly believe, just as I found everyone in my cabinet, people didn't magically appear, right? I met Maeve randomly. I met Michael. He was doing artwork for me. Archibald was literally just some random guy I saw at the courthouse after I got my bar license. And I tweeted out looking for paralegals to do work for me. And Archie would go and just read everything and memorize it and come up with a plan. All of this came from just, I genuinely think a job fair would be so critically useful for the LSPD, because I imagine that people would show up, might even get on a damn train, to be honest, right? Knowing there's some big LSPD hiring event, and allow you to hire based on personality. And what I mean by that specifically is, when I say personality, I don't mean like Carmine's a personality, but there's probably areas that you need, right? Be it administration. Sorry, just to finish the thought, and then
No, I agree. I mean,
and you can be like, holy fuck, this is exactly what I need. We can train him, and then a month from now, all of a sudden they're accelerating down a path.
I mean, that's kind of how I have instructed and tried to get people to hire. Like, anybody can be a cop, but you can't train people to have a personality.
I think you and Peters specifically, being at a job fair like that, even if it was like a 1 hour increment where you're just meet and greeting, who are you? Like, how are things? What are you up to? Whatever. That small 5-minute interaction, it can tell you a lot about someone.
It's easier than just reading an application to get a sense of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Maeve. I just want to get the thought out.
Yeah, so urgent update. Michael is in the ICU.
What?
Yeah, apparently he was shot at a meeting. An officer just called me and said that
at a meeting?
I'm on the contact. Yeah.
Oh,
He said he had to go to a jetty north of Bay City Avenue before, when we were ending our meeting.
Oh
and
my god.
I don't know what happened, so
I should probably go.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna think about our conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I made you crash out about the riddle thing.
I
you do give clear direction, you know.
Okay. All right.
I think just the current state of how things are is just is difficult, you know, for you, for me, Peters. I think we're just trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't got to apologize. I think most of even my reaction is 90% all this other shit. And transparently losing reason to not go on vacation for extended time. Because like, we're bored.
I mean, you look at the Cornwood thing. You know, Cornwood's docket post has been it's been up there pending for almost 2 months.
Yeah.
For no reason. Like, it just hasn't been scheduled.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. There's no reason that shouldn't have been that shouldn't have happened already.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. if I do end up going on extended vacation, which I'm somewhat planning, it's not because of the PD. It's because of the rest of the government being on vacation or strike or whatever you want to call it. But
Damn.
you know, plus it'll give me time to, you know, I mean, look at Pred. Guy's been, anyways. I don't want to open that topic back up. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it, Moss. I think this is good.
Okay.
This is good.
And if there's
All right.
anything, you know, we can do to support you, like don't hesitate to ask. And if you're worried about like bothering Nino, like feel free to bother me.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Yep,
the talk.
absolutely.
With both
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Moss.
of you. Keep you know, keep Maeve around. She's a good one.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you. You've got to open it. I still
Oh,
have
yeah.
keys.
Oh, you should. I talked to Hollow yesterday.
Wait, do I?
He didn't. Yeah. Try signing into City Hall.
Okay, we'll do that after
Yep.
we go see Michael.